Right, but she forgot one thing. Guy who makes people cry. That's really my job title, right? Because if you've seen a Pixar film, yes, I'm one of those people that makes you cry and laugh and make you feel something, right? That's what I've been doing all these years, creating stories. That's what I love to do. I love creating stories, I love telling stories, and I love helping people be better storytellers. So, it makes sense that I should start off with my story, which, as weird as this may seem, yes, begins in a toy store, Jeffrey's toy store. Because when I was born, my parents owned the largest chain of family-run toy stores in the San Francisco Bay Area. How much of a bummer is that? Instantly, I was set on toys for the rest of my life. It's your birthday, go into the store, just get whatever you want. The only trouble was later on trying to figure out who your real friends are in life. I think I still have a pretty good collection of toys, so I still deal with this. But my mom and dad were not the ones who started the toy store chain. My grandparents, they owned and operated Jeffrey's Toys before my parents. Before my grandparents, my great-grandparents owned and operated the toy stores. And then my great-great-grandfather, yes, Charlie, the guy with the cigar in his mouth, he actually hated toys and he hated kids. He actually owned a cigar shop in San Francisco. We don't talk about Charlie much, but that's okay. But over here, we have my dad with the slinky, and my grandfather, who I'm very happy to say is 92 years old. I know, he's turning 92 this month. He was a Marine in World War II, and he could still beat me up today if he wants to. But my dad, he actually didn't want to continue running the toy stores. Not the Smurf, the other guy. When my dad volunteered to go to Vietnam, and he came back home, he told his dad, the Marine, "Dad, I want to be an animator. I want to work for Walt Disney and be a Disney animator." This is what my dad has always wanted to do ever since he was a kid. He was that kid who always loved to draw cartoons, loved to write stories. It's just, that's who he is. But when he came back from Vietnam and he told his dad, the Marine, "I want to be a Disney animator," you can probably guess how that story ended. First, artists don't make money. Second, we've got the family business. You need to help me. So just think about the first Star Wars movie, right? You know, Luke saying, "I want to be a fighter pilot." Uncle Owen and Aunt Baruka saying, "No, you need to work on the farm." Except my dad's not a Jedi. That's pretty much what the story turned out. And my dad continued running the family businesses, the toy stores, and he still does that today in San Francisco and in Berkeley. 80% discount for anybody today. So, you have time, you can make it. Then, when I was about 3 years old, I should also mention my mom is from Germany, hence the girl lederhosen here. When I was about 3 years old, my dad was home from the toy stores with a sick stomach. And to be able to cheer him up, I did a drawing for him. It was a drawing of him with a stomach ache. And you can see from the swirls inside, you know, it's a very good rendering of my dad. When my dad saw this drawing, he instantly was like, "You are gonna be that animator. You are going to live that dream. Whether you want to or not, this is your future." So fortunately, I did like to draw. And my dad would do the regular things that other parents would do, like take your kids to animated films, right? Take them to museums, try to give them some culture. But my dad took it to the next level. When my mom would drop me off at school in the morning, elementary school, My dad, at least once a week, would pick me up around 11 a.m. to go take me to the movie of the week, because I was his movie buddy. Now, sometimes they were animated, but for most of the time, they were just what he felt were really good movies we needed to see. Like Poltergeist when you're 5 years old. But all of this love of movies and animation, it rubbed off on me, and by the time I was 18 years old, maybe I was 17, I knew I wanted to go to this specific animation school called CalArts in LA. That was the animation school at the time in all of the US. It was the school that Walt Disney started before he passed away to be able to train the next generation of animators. Your teachers would be the guys who animated on Bambi and on Pinocchio. It's crazy. I wasn't the only one who wanted to go to this school. Everybody who had a love for animation wanted to get into this school. And our animation department number was A113. These three guys here are three guys I've worked with for a long time. John Lasseter, director of Toy Story, Cars. You've probably maybe seen those. Andrew Stanton here, director of WALL-E. Anybody see WALL-E? And Finding Nemo. And then Pete over there, the director of Inside Out, Monsters, Inc., Up. We all, that's right, give it up, give it up. We all went to this school, and the Pixar culture comes from CalArts. It comes from our animation department, A113, which, if you're a Pixar nerd like me, take a look at those movies again, because A113 is in every single one of them. And we're not the only one who does this. Everybody else who's gone to the animation department at CalArts, like Tim Burton, they sneak that in every film as well. And while I was going to CalArts, thank God I got accepted, I made a student film. It was called 𝗬𝗲𝗪_Saves the Day. No, it's not on the internet. It was a 4-minute animated film I made. I painted it on cells, I put music, I did voices, and a small animation company saw it called The Simpsons. They had only been on the air for 2 years. They were my favorite TV show, and they offered me a job to be an animator on the 3rd season of The Simpsons, which is a very good season. I was only 19 years old when I took the job. I did what was totally logical. I quit school, and I stayed in Hollywood, and I started working on The Simpsons, and I was animating every day. At this point, I had reached, in a way, my dad's goal. And then I stumbled into the story room. This was the room where the writers were writing an episode once a week. Do you recognize that guy in the back with the Coke can? Yes, it's Conan. And there was comic strip artists in there. There were comedians in there. And as a team, just like Saturday Night Live, they were writing a different episode every week. I fell in love with this. I was like, this is why I've always loved animated movies and those live action movies I went to see with my dad. It was the big picture, it was the story. That's what really interested me. But I thought, this is just not possible. I can't go and join these guys. They'll never invite me in. So I stayed the course, I kept animating, and I knew one thing. I clicked a little quicker on that frame there. I know one thing. I wanted to get out of Hollywood. I wanted to go back to the San Francisco Bay Area. And that's when there was a little studio of 80 people that saw another film I made called Starship Space Hustle. No, it's not on the internet. And they thought it was really funny. And they said, we have a dream to make the very first computer-generated animated film. And guess what? There's going to be no princess or prince in the movie. There's going to be no musical, no happy fairy tale village, and nobody sang their I Want song. And I'm like, I'm in. So I took the job. I was one of the first 12 animators on this movie that was sure to bomb because it wasn't the regular animated film. And the very first thing I got to animate on the film was these little guys, the little army men. Now, to be able to get this animation as effective as possible, I screwed my shoes into a board. I filmed myself hopping around the studio, crawling on the floor, jumping off desks. Everyone thought I was completely insane. I was collecting data in a way, right? And that is how I went about animating the army men. It was great. But once again, the part that really interested me was the story. And as an animator, you're given a couple of things when you animate. You're given the script, hopefully, and you're given the storyboards. These are the storyboards for the scenes I got to animate. That was the part where I was like, oh, I was drooling over that part. So I would animate my army men during the day. This is before I was married and had any kids. Essentially, I had a life. And I would then go into the story room after I was done animating and on the weekend, and I would help the story team out with whatever they needed. I would shade the green, I'd come up with gags, and eventually they said, we get it, Matthew, you want to be a story guy. So, on Toy Story 2, I got moved into the role of a story guy. What does a story guy do? I help figure out what the movie's going to be about. What's the heart of the story? What's the plot of the story? Who are the characters? Story structure, everything. On 10 movies at Pixar for over 20 years. Just doing the story stuff. And I realized through all these years creating these films, which I didn't know in the very beginning were having such an effect on people, that the reason why our films were so great was not because of the animation necessarily, or because of the music or the voices, because other companies were doing that. The reason why people kept coming back to Pixar films and loving them was because of the story. The story was really meaningful. It was beyond just the plot, but there was heart in the story. And I also started realizing that the same techniques we were using to create great films about toys were the same techniques that my family had been using for years on how to sell toys, which was using a great story. The story of Jeffrey's Toys, being able to connect with the people that came in the store. Because all those years with those toy stores, it was beyond just selling toys, we were selling an experience. And that's when I realized that what makes a great movie or makes a great business is a great story. You guys have heard this before. So why is it that stories are so meaningful? Well, first, because they're memorable. You know, of all the images that we are bombarded with every day, from a billboard to TV to something on our phone, you're only going to remember certain images at the end of the day. Of all the information that you guys are going to hear every day, you're only going to retain some of it. Because of all the data and statistics that we get bombarded with every day, the truth is, the depressing truth is, 10 minutes later, you will only remember 5% of that information. I know, wah, wah, wah. But that's the truth. I learned this on Inside Out. Remember all the memories go to the memory dump? But the certain memories that stick with you, even for Riley in Inside Out, were the memories that were wrapped around an event, a moment, a story, an experience. When you can wrap your statistics and data around that kind of experience, people will remember it. And I'm not just talking about the written story, I'm talking even more about the visual story. Because visual storytelling is really how we communicate today. So everything from typeface to color to an image will tell a story. You know, in the States, the IRS uses the same font every year when they're asking us for money for taxes. And when people accidentally use that same font to advertise their company, you're just pissing people off. And they don't even know why they're getting pissed off. Why? I don't want to look at this. It's because even visuals tell a story. And when you use story to be able to communicate information, you make your chances go up 22 times. Now, the information you shared, 10 minutes later, people are going to remember 65% of it. Simply because you told a silly story about your family who owned a toy store, or whatever story, anecdote you want to share. And when you tell a story, and you want people to sit on the edge of their seats, you want to impact their chemicals. One of the things I always try to do when I'm crafting a story for entertainment or business is I want to get people to sit on the edge of their seats. I want them to be excited about what is going to happen next in the story. That anticipation. How do I do this? By impacting people's chemicals in their body. Because when you tell a great story and you see a character laughing or being happy, you're changing people's chemicals. You laugh with the characters. You feel good. Your endorphins go up. And then when you see characters on a screen sad, your chemicals go down. Cortisol kicks in, right? You know how you tell a great story? Not by just having happy, 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 happy moments the whole movie, or sad, sad, sad during the whole commercial. What makes a great story is when you go from one chemical to the next one, up and down. Anybody see that very emotional beginning of the movie Up? This is how we impacted your chemicals. At the very beginning, we released all those happy chemicals in you by showing two people fall in love, get married, build a house, work together, and as they're looking up at the sky, looking at the clouds, the man points up and he says, "Look at that cloud, it looks like a baby." And the girl looks up at the sky, and she goes, "Look, all the clouds look like babies." And we laugh. But then the very next image, we see them in a hospital, and we see that the woman's never going to be able to have any kids. And now the chemicals that were going straight up switch and go straight down. When you change the chemicals in people's bodies this quickly, you will make grown adults cry. It just happens. And then you take people up and you go, wait, it's not so bad. They're going to go on an adventure one day. They're going to go to South America. They're going to save up money. They're going to go on to South America, Paradise Falls. And then we see they can never earn enough money. And then we take you back up, and he sells his pocket watch. He buys those tickets. He takes her up to their favorite place up on the hill with a tree. And then we take you down when you see, I'm going to blow it for you right now if you haven't seen the movie. She passes away. And this is a kid's film as well. This up and down, tension and release of changing the chemicals is what makes a story great. How many times have you heard that what makes a great story is a roller coaster ride? That's what great speakers do. When Steve Jobs introduced the iPhone 10 years ago, he came out, he said, "I have something revolutionary, it's going to change the world." We're all excited. He says, "It's a smartphone." We're like, "Yay!" Then he takes you down and says, "Smartphones exist and they're stupid." Why are you telling us this? Because then when he goes to the next high point, it's going to be twice as fun. And he says, "But mine is smarter than your computer at home." And then he takes you down and says, "But all those smartphones that are out there, they have a stylus pin. They're really hard to use, awkward, ugly." You're like, "Oh." But then he takes you up. "Let me introduce you to multi-touch. And then apps are hard to get. I can make them easy." This up and down, release, tension and release, this is what impacts people's chemicals and makes them sit on the edge of their seat wanting to hear more. And when you do this, if the character in the movie, like Woody, is the character taking us through this journey, then we get personally connected to a toy. If it's a CEO, like Steve Jobs, we get personally connected to that CEO. Whoever tells that impactful, memorable story, we become personally connected with them. And we believe them. If they tell us we should go buy that new thing, we do it. If they say, go see that next movie, we do it. Because we're personally connected. Anecdotes is one of the greatest tools you guys have in the world of marketing, in the world of being storytellers. Sharing personal and professional moments of where you've had success, or people who have used your product or have used your company have had a positive experience. When you share that, you impact people, you make it memorable, and you make it personal. We use anecdotes all the time in our movies. Woody, who is all about being there for his owner, when he gets toy napped in Toy Story 2 and taken to this toy collector's weird apartment and is told, you are the Woody from the Woody's Roundup, all he wants to do is go home. He wants to get back to his best friend. But when Jessie, the cowgirl, shares with him that she once used to have an owner who abandoned her, the anecdote is so powerful that he decides, I don't want to go back home. I don't want to go back to my best friend Buzz. An anecdote, a story, can be so powerful you can change the way people feel. Great leaders do this all the time. Working with Steve was one of the highlights of being at Pixar, because he was a great storyteller that made a personal connection with people. So, I am very short on time already, but I'm going to go through a few steps here. Some of the ways to be able to be a better storyteller is, first, you gotta have a great hook. If you can't hook people in within 8 seconds, you've already blown it. But how do you hook people? What is it? Shock value? What do you do? From my experience, it's creating something unusual, unexpected, or has some sort of action or conflict at the very beginning, in those first 8 seconds. Whether it's, what if superheroes were banned from saving people? That's within 8 seconds. Or, what if a rat wanted to be a French chef? That's less than 8 seconds. Or even, what if you could put 1,000 songs in your pocket? When Steve Jobs introduced the iPod, that's when there was just Walkmans. 10, 20 songs on a cassette tape. This was a great hook. A hook that is unusual, unexpected, or creates a conflict or action gets our attention. But you know what? Once you hook people, you want to keep them. You want to keep them sitting in the movie, right? I know that when people go to a movie, they want to go pee, they want to eat. I want to keep them from that. They want to go on their phones. I want to keep them from that. But after I hook them, the next thing is I have to make a promise to them that what you're about to watch for 90 minutes is going to change your life. That's a big promise. But that's what people want. People want to go through a transformation. People don't like to change personally, but we like to go through a transformation through a hero on a journey. You can do this one-on-one with a client by sharing with them how you were changed through an experience, right? Or how somebody that you know has been changed through an experience. But the next thing people want to know once you hook them is, how is the thing you're talking to me about going to make me richer, happier, faster, or in a Pixar movie case, make me remember how wonderful it is to fall in love. Or that no matter how bad life ever gets, there's always a way to have a zest for life again, an adventure. That's what makes those Pixar films great. It's not just the special effects, it's characters changing. It's a monster who's the #1 scarer in the monster world discovering he doesn't want to scare anymore. It's about a car who's so focused on winning the Piston Cup, so arrogant, learning about friendship and compassion. It's that change. And change, whether it's in a movie or in the real world, catches our attention. I know you guys know this, but don't we hate it so much when companies all just kind of create ads that all look the same? All the images look the same, whether it's, health industry, car industry, shoes. But the ads that stand out, the images that stand out, are ones that create change. Like when Uber came about, they created change. That's the next thing you want to promise to people. But the problem is that a lot of times we create a great story that has a great hook, a great change, but we totally connect with the wrong audience. When you're planning a fundraiser, you're wanting to get an investor for your company, you could totally miss the mark if you read the audience the wrong way. If you're telling a story that doesn't speak to them on their level, right? Are they teenagers? Are they young adults? Are they retired? You want to make sure you're connecting with the right audience. For me, though, it's tricky. Who's my audience? It's everybody, not just in this room, but the whole world. We call that the 4 quadrants. Man, woman, young, old. It's a broad audience. What do people have in common with a rat? What do people have in common with France or cooking? I hate cooking. I hate rats. But you know what we have in common? This guy has a dream to do something that his dad, his family, his culture, his species say you cannot do. That's why we love that movie, because everybody can relate to the passions and struggles of somebody who wants to do something and is told, no, you cannot do it because of your gender, because of your color, culture, whatever. It's relatable. But if I want to make sure I'm connecting with a specific audience, then I want to make sure that whatever ads I'm doing connect to that group. So, for me, I have 3 kids. One of them is only 3 weeks old. What the heck am I doing here right now? I think I left the baby in the car. Thank you. Moms don't take sick days. They take Dayquil and NyQuil. Dads don't take sick days. They take both at the same time, and it's great. You gotta make sure you're connecting with the right audience. Know their passions, know their struggles, know their weaknesses. Even for people in the animation movie industry, we collect data. And I'm not just talking about, going out and having people watch your movie and give you feedback. We want to know our audience. With all of this, though, you can create a great story, and it has no heart. People watch it, and they just feel like, you're just tricking me to buy more little metal cars. You need to create a story with heart. You need to be authentic. How do we do this? How have we done this for so many movies? It's because we make sure that every story we create is personal. That means every one of these stories is something that personally happened to us. They come from our heart. On Finding Nemo, what inspired the whole idea of the father and the son? It's because every one of us in the story department who worked on that film, we had all had our first kids, and they were all boys. And we were that parent that was doing this, the helicopter parent. On Inside Out, Pete Docter, the director, the tallest animator I've ever met, and also the most happiest, sickening happiest animator I've ever met, his whole family is happy. Until his daughter turned 12 years old. And Pete didn't know what to do. She was just like so emotionally sad all the time. So Pete's reaction is, I'm gonna be super happy all the time. And you can imagine that turned into a train wreck. But through the experience, Pete realized you need all the emotions in life. His daughter just needed to cry. She needed to get pissed. She needed to be disgusted with him. She needed to be scared. And he wanted to share with the world that experience to be able to help others. He is joy, and his daughter is sadness. That's what the story's about. One of the best pieces of advice I ever got has been, don't be clever. Don't try to create a story thinking that this is what people want to hear. Speak from your heart. I know it's hard. We're programmed at an early age that if we take chances, if we speak from our heart, we're going to fail. But you know what? The best leaders, the best directors are the ones who are storytellers that speak from the heart. They're authentic. You know, we will never say the theme of our movie, ever. You would hate us if we told you the theme of our movies, because it wouldn't be authentic. You want people to feel the theme. You want people to feel the, if you never let anything happen to Nemo, nothing will ever happen to him. You don't want to say it. You don't want to ever say the mission statement to your clients or potential clients. That's for you. You want people to feel the mission statement. You want it to be authentic. And then you want to make sure that you wrap all of these great story tools in a way that's going to have good pacing and timing, so that when you deliver the information, when you do the pitch, when you do the presentation at the board meeting, that you do it in a way that has a setup, a build, and a payoff. I can't tell you how many times people have wonderful content, they have a great, way to connect, but the delivery was awful. Because for thousands and thousands of years, we have been delivering stories the same way, with a beginning, middle, and end. Why do we do this? Because this is the way the world has been. A beginning of the day, a middle of the day, an end of the day, a cycle of life. That's why we love Act 1, Act 2, and Act 3, the hero's journey. So you want to make sure that when you share stories, whether they're 3 minutes, whether they're 90 minutes, they have a beginning where you set up the ordinary world, and then you set up a problem, right? For example, Woody, favorite toy in the room. Problem, a cooler toy arrives. Middle of the room, Woody tries to get rid of Buzz, but it causes both of them to get kidnapped by Sid, a kid that likes to torture toys for fun. Woody and Buzz hate each other, but they have to work together. And by the end, Woody has learned to be less selfish. Buzz has learned that even though he's not the real Buzz Lightyear, he's still an important toy. And they get back to their owner. A beginning, middle, and end. And you know what a great story does? A great story makes you feel something. Because we are way beyond marketing to sell people stuff. We are selling a feeling. We're selling a story. We want people to feel something. I want to leave you guys with one video, and then we're going to wrap it up here.
Dad, I'm ready.
Did you look outside?
Take him.
When the rain's blowing in your face and the whole world's on your
Hair's coming down.
She'll be there.
I could offer you a warm embrace to make you feel my love. When the evening shadows and the stars appear, there is no one there to dry your tears. I could hold you for 1,000,000 years to make make you feel my love. Go to the ends of the earth for you, to make you feel my love.
Mercedes-Benz, the best or nothing.
You know a story works when you get teary-eyed, you get goosebumps, even watching a Mercedes commercial. Because in the end, people aren't going to remember what you said, people are not going to remember what you did, but they are going to remember how you made them feel. Thanks, you guys.